There's been a lot of rumors about child actors in Hollywood recently. What do you make of all that?
Well, it's all true.
So what did you escape unscathed?
I did. I would say I saw a lot of it.
What did you see?
For example, I worked on a children's TV show on a major network. And one of the writers, after we wrapped on the show, after the show was canceled, had incredibly inappropriate relationships with young women like me who were on the show. Young women in my...
How young?
14.
Okay.
And to my knowledge, this was not sexual, but it was objectively grooming. It was inappropriate relationships between an adult and minors because Hollywood goes ahead and it blurs the lines between what is appropriate between adults and children because you're working with adults constantly.
Right.
My entire life. My entire childhood, I spent more time with adults than I did with children. My management team, they were all adults, obviously. Agents, managers, directors, casting directors, producers, wardrobe assistants. You're surrounded by adults constantly. Writers, in this case. And those lines get really blurred. So if a writer on a TV show that you worked on invites you and one of your co-stars out to lunch to talk about another TV show that he's working on, your parents go, oh, okay, yeah. Well, you've worked with him for 2 years at this point. Let's take you to lunch. And then you're sitting here with this girl who's a year older than you, and he starts talking about the lesbian fantasies that he has about you and your friend. Like that's nothing happened, but that's the fact that he thought that that was appropriate. The fact that
well, that's a testing behavior.
Yeah. And then the fact that later we're walking around the restaurant and he puts his hand in my friend's back pocket, who's 15 years old. And I was just, I'd get me out of here. Completely inappropriate. She was,
How many of the young people in Hollywood are sold into that, so to speak, by their parents? Now, you characterized your mother as someone who was loath to take you on the Hollywood adventure. But there's no shortage of parents. Is it more common among mothers? Probably. Yeah. The cluster B type mothers who use their children to their own advantage, come hell or high water. Jazz Jennings, for example, springs to mind, right, in the most brutal and horrible possible manner, right? But you can see a lot of this on social media. Parents pimping out their children, transforming them as well, and then proclaiming their moral virtue in consequence of the transformation. My child is very, very deviant, but I'm such a wonderful person that I still love them deeply. Right.
But it was them in the first place that pushed them in that direction in the first place. And then
you might say so.
Yeah. And I think another example, did you read I'm Glad My Mom Died by Jeanette McCurdy?
No, I haven't read it.
Fantastic. And that I think is the most incredible example of what a lot of these younger people. Jeanette McCurdy. She's from iCarly.
Jeanette,
yes.
You haven't talked to her on your podcast.
No, I have not. I believe she talked to Michaela.
Okay.
It was just an incredible book. I remember I read it last year when it came out, and I was just tears reading it because these are the stories of the people that I grew up with. They're the things that I saw but was protected against. My mom was very wary about me being involved in this industry, and she was a shark. She set firm boundaries. She was always watching. She was always within eyeshot.
Right. So you had a guardian.
Oh, yes.
Right.
And the other thing that I think was incredibly important that she did was, again, like I said, I had so many other things going on in my life, so my identity was not wrapped up in this industry. I never connected it to money at all because my money was put in savings accounts. My parents never touched it. My mom never touched it. The state takes 15% of whatever a young actor makes and puts it into your Coogan account. So if you are in a situation where your parents are exploiting you, at least by 18, you have some money. Never touched any of that and never wanted me to connect Hollywood and making money. Because she saw people in my circle, these kids, they would, do an episode on a TV show and then their parents would go out and buy 6 American Girl dolls and they would buy a fancy new car for the family. And, the parents would take a huge vacation that the kid at 8 years old paid for.
Right.
And my mom always wanted to ensure that I stuck in this industry because I loved it, because I couldn't live without it, because I loved telling stories. And at least once a month, she would say, are you sure you want to do this? Because if you ever want to stop, we'll stop. I don't care how much money we've invested in your acting classes and your dance classes. If you want to stop, if you want to go home, we will pack up and move to Tennessee.
What made her so sensible?
She's a brilliant woman. She's incredible. She's one of the most resilient people I've ever met. Mm-hmm. She has been to hell and back a million times. Her first husband passed away. Her child then passed away. Mm-hmm. My older brother, in light of my brother's passing, has severe mental illness. He's permanently in a psychiatric facility for schizophrenia. Very, very hard marriage with my father. Very, very hard upbringing where she was often the black sheep. Mm-hmm. She is very comfortable being non-traditional and doing things that would be considered unconventional in whatever circumstance she's in.
So how did you end up with traditional values then?
Because she's very traditional. But I realized that as I said that, I contradicted myself. Well, she is willing to be unconventional in the given circumstances. So in Hollywood,
so she's daring.
She's daring. Mm-hmm. And the majority of people that we were surrounded by where parents were pushing their kids into this. Yeah. She was willing to be the one that says, no, my kid is not doing that.